What a hard act to follow. But tēnā koutou katoa ko Trish Kirkland-Smith tōku whenua. I'm the current chair of the DOC Fonterra Living Water Partnership, and I'm the head of our Nature Solutions and Partnerships team at Fonterra. I'd like to just thank NZARM for having us as a conference partner. It's actually perfect timing for us. We've been quietly beavering away, and we're just starting to tell our legacy story. And so you've made it really, simple for us to show up here at this conference, so we really appreciate that. I'd also just like to acknowledge the faces in the room. There's many of our partners, actually, who have snuck in here. We've got, I see Shantae here from up north, Clint through there, we've got Katie from DOC down the back there, and just many of the councils that we worked with over the last 10 years. So just wanted to acknowledge everybody there. When I was first thinking about this presentation and what I wanted to get across to you guys, I immediately went into thinking about all the technical things that we have trialled and all the projects we've delivered and all the results that we've achieved. So I started pulling together some slides, and I ended up with over 150 of them. There was a lot to cover after 10 years. Obviously we don't have time for that, but luckily we've been able to co-op one of the field trips on Thursday, so there'll be lots of time then to get into the nitty-gritty for those who want to know more. So that brought me back to this session. What's the story that we can tell when we can't talk about every project and there isn't a single big result or a single silver bullet? And many were expecting that of this partnership. In the end, I thought about some of the common things that we hear when people first learn about DOC and Fonterra being in a partnership, and what we hear when we tell others about our mission, which is dairy and freshwater thriving together. Have I got slides? Oh, good Lord. There we go. That's us. So we get comments all the time from people across central and local government and the ag sector and the environment sector. They say things like, living water, never heard of it. 10 years together, what the heck have you been doing? Why did you need 10 years to figure out we just need less cows? Or, oh, that partnership. You know, the one where Fonterra's greenwashing and they've paid DOC some cash so we'd stop making submissions on regional plans and consents. Or that partnership. You mean the one where DOC sold out to Dirty Dairy? Don't worry, we've heard it all. And when I reflect on those comments and how they make me and the whole Living Water team feel, two things come to mind. One, discomfort. There's been a lot of it. And two, was it really possible? Was it really possible for our two organisations to even work together? And ultimately for dairy and fresh water to thrive together? So I'm going to focus on the discomfort in the partnership, and Mark's then going to talk about all the fun things that we have achieved and what we found to be possible. So uncomfortable. That word perfectly sums up what it is like when we talk about dairying and fresh water in Aotearoa. And even more so the feeling when we talk about DOC and Fonterra being in a partnership. But the benefits of persisting through discomfort is actually backed by social science and change theory, which says that you don't get transformation without a significant level of discomfort. So when the idea of the two organisations working together came about, we knew we were probably playing in the right space, a space of extreme discomfort. So I'm just going to start at the beginning. Why did our two organisations get together to create the Living Water Partnership? Neither Mark or I were involved then, but most of you will remember back in 2011, 2012, it was all about dirty dairying. The rapid increase in dairy farming has a significant collective impact on New Zealand's water. There was at that time farm by farm work underway around the basics, fencing stock out of waterways, effluent management systems on farm, and a focus on farm nutrient management. But there wasn't such a focus on the overall ecological health of lowland ecosystems and those productive landscapes. And with nearly 40% of Aotearoa's whenua under the stewardship of these two organisations, there was a belief that we could make a bigger difference if we did it together. We were also two national organisations that actually had quite similar operating models, locally, regionally, nationally, and also with global responsibilities. We each have scientists, we have planners, we have specialist advisors, and we have field teams. We're based at place. We are in communities. So we had more in common than actually most people thought. But overriding all of that, if our two organisations could find a way to work together on this big freshwater challenge, then we thought virtually anyone could. We knew there were big problems, but I think at the start we had quite different ideas on the solutions. Fonterra had already built its every farm, every day approach to environmental improvement. It was a farm scale approach. Many thought that all we needed to do was a bit of restoration or biodiversity into that farm. Meanwhile, Dockwood had a long and strong history of ecosystem restoration and threatened species work on public conservation land. And many thought we just needed to expand that to private land. So in the early days, we actually built a catchment restoration program based on the successful DOC wetlands program, Arawai Kakariki. We looked for quick wins to build momentum, and we were working with what seemed like a very healthy annual budget of $2 million a year. We mainly worked side by side on our own pieces of the puzzle. There was an on-farm work stream and an off-farm work stream. We focused on the bits we each knew well. But the budget very quickly got consumed, paying for the baselining and the science that was required to underpin catchment scale work. The healthy annual budget was split across a national program, teams of people, and 5 significant catchments. We could tell after a few years that we weren't making the progress we'd hoped, and we weren't really harnessing the strength of being together. Also, the more we dug into things, the more we started realising that we were up against what was actually more of a system and a people problem than a technical environmental one. Between 2013 and 2016, we'd built a really good environmental program and recognised that interface with people and livelihoods. But we hadn't quite cracked our role or our unique offering into the land and water management space that included so many other players. So in 2016, 3 years in, we re-strategised. We knew we didn't have the resources, the reach, and in many cases, the mandate to restore 5 catchments. We needed to rescope things, and we did this using a Google Sprint innovation process that helped us identify the system problems and find our unique value-add role in all our catchments, and also nationally. We looked to others to see how they could disrupt some of our ingrained organisational thinking. We identified thought leaders and agitators to shake us up and help co-design a bold integrated work program. We developed a new mindset and new approach, systems diagnosis, rapid design thinking. We backed some brave moves. We drew in and respected all knowledges, and we openly shared the lessons we were constantly learning, particularly the failures. We felt uncomfortable. It was really hard. But we created a team who believed the future looked different and who wanted to help figure out what that future looked like. So for the past 7 years, the Living Water Partnership has focused on trialling tools and approaches to enable farming, fresh water, and healthy ecosystems to thrive side by side, with the intention that the successful solutions can be costed and scaled. Part of the reset, we developed 3 core pillars to guide the partnership implementation. Firstly, we were a partnership with a shared vision. We believed in a long-term, prosperous future where nature and productive landscapes and communities thrive. We had clear measures of success for the 10 years together, and we went on an active learning journey together. Learning how to partner as large, complex organisations. Then we delivered a program of activity on the ground, trialling the tools and approaches, measuring what our work achieved environmentally, socially, economically. And we were open source, sharing with anyone who was interested. We didn't pick favourites. And finally, we would stand together as champions of change. We know that farming and land and water management needs to be different, and we've constantly challenged the status quo within each of our organisations, and we've been developing shared advocacy positions so that we can stand behind as two of New Zealand's largest organisations. In 2016, we also designed clear phases to our mahi. And this was to ensure things were manageable and were supported by an agreed theory of change that we'd designed. But we were conscious of the external drivers and the role they play in change. So we made sure we stayed agile and we grabbed opportunities as context changed or new drivers appeared. So that's a bit of the backstory about the partnership, and Mark's now going to take you through a little bit about what we've been doing.
Yeah, got new ones. Tēnā koutou katoa. No kote rāna me ai rihi aku tupuna. He ngākau nui ki te moana rā te oranga tangaroa. Te oranga hoki arangi mi papa. Ko taku whānau te pokapua takawao. Ko te wāwata nei hia whakakotahingi a tātou I rāro I te koroa o te taio. Ko tikapa moana te moana. Ko rangitautu te maunga, ko tatahi toko kāinga, ko Mark Fitzpatrick taku ingoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Hi everyone, I'm Mark, and yeah, thanks for having me here today. I'm really grateful to be here, to be able to talk to you guys about this partnership. I'm currently an executive member on the DOC Fonterra Living Water Governance Group, and I'm the head of strategic partnerships at Department of Conservation. DOC and Fonterra are two national organisations, as Trish said, but much of our shared mahi was undertaken at place. This is where our DOC rangers, Fonterra's sustainable dairying advisors, worked along side by side. Fonterra invited us onto farm, and we got them and their farmers into our special native places and native refuges throughout the catchments. We worked in 5 demonstration catchments from Northland to Southland, all completely unique and all significant dairying regions with different challenges. Our catchments were chosen after consulting with DOC, regional councils, and definitely the team at the time did not pick the easy ones. They picked the ones where change could be demonstrated. Over the 10 years, the team have designed and delivered 70 projects. Did that move on? No, it didn't. 70 projects. Some completed by our own DOC, on our own DOC and Fonterra teams, but most in partnership with farmers, mana whenua, local communities, scientists and other farming and environmental organisations. There was a clear, structured approach to the mahi. First, assessing local situations and challenges, using Google Sprints to find the unique focus, and appraising available solutions and looking at new research and ideas. They built a strong program intervention logic and theory of change, both nationally and at site, and built interdisciplinary teams with the right mindset, and built trust, and more trust, and more trust. They connected people, creating a network of farmers, scientists, mana whenua, communities, councils, local groups to work on the challenges together. Co-designed, aligning with others who knew more than us, and opening our minds and joining the hard conversations on the future of fresh water. The guys found and trialled new tools and approaches, failing fast and then going at it again, sharing all the lessons and results that they found along the way. They did demonstrations, monitored, measured, recorded results, costed the scaling of solutions, and designed the implementation recipes to make things as easy as possible for adaptation, or adoption, I should say. And to this day, championing change within our organisations and with those we connect and work with locally and nationally. We've been finding the system unlocks, working together to accelerate the fixes and showing people what the future could look like. There we go. So in total, over 40 trials. making sure that they looked at farm scale, catchment scale, and the social approaches, importantly the social approaches, that support people and organisations through change. And I'll just touch on a few brief examples of the different types of things that were trialled throughout the term of the partnership.
I can send you the slides too, I see people taking photos.
So to kick things off, identifying and piloting a game-changing farm-scale solution that reduced nitrogen loss to waterways and saved the farmer money while still achieving the same amount of pasture growth. Backing some fantastic physiographic science in the early years of the partnership, and it paid off. Landscape DNA today is democratising data and putting it in the hands of land stewards and community catchment groups so they can be empowered and then make the best decisions for their whenua and awa. Working with a brave collective of partners here in Canterbury, the team have reimagined and redesigned a lowland water network and its management. And it wasn't just a catchment plan that was delivered, the plan was accompanied by a fully scoped implementation plan, something that's called the recipe, stepping through exactly how to bring the catchment change to life through long-term council planning and budgeting and through community processes. Embracing te ao Māori concepts and approaches, swapping out traditional memorandum of understanding type documents with human-centred, co-designed mana enhancing agreements and processes. Working with some of the best scientists, the ones who want to co-design with the farmer, rather than just telling them what needed to be done on their farm. And guided by nature and what nature needed. Facilitating land swaps, retirement of productive land in order to take pressure off sensitive receiving environments, like the internationally significant Ramsar wetland at Puāwai, Miranda. Sometimes the partnership required us to dial down our own partnership in order to make space and join in with other partnerships. The formation of the Whakamana Te Waituna Partnership and Trust in Southland was a circuit breaker for the Waituna catchment. The catchment's now planned and investment ready to transition to a low emissions, nature positive and climate resilient productive landscape. And this is the important stuff, using social coaches. Independent people who are experts in the social processes and arrangements that local communities, catchments and organisations are based on. These coaches sat alongside the place-based partners and technical teams, helping to navigate through tricky collaborations and co-design projects. So in the end, we didn't just find one or two game changers as some as expected. We actually found a whole raft of things that were game changing for different organisations. And I acknowledge there's more dots against Doc than anyone else up on the board there. For different people at different scales, which showed how diverse change really is, and also the richness of our program of work over the last 10 years. So that was a brief glimpse into the mahi. There's a lot of other projects we didn't get to talk about. They're all documented on the website. I encourage you to go there. And the guys are around to be able to answer any questions as they go. So thank you. Back to you, Trish.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. So as you can see from Mark's overview, we've delivered a lot and we've done what we actually set out to do. And we actually have a whole heap of case studies, monitoring and evaluation reporting, which is being completed as we speak. It'll back up all of the findings of the teams on the ground. But the biggest and most important part of partnering on the hard challenges like freshwater is the shared learning journey along the way. As you've seen, we don't have any silver bullet solutions or answers. I personally don't think they actually exist in these complex challenges, or transformative challenges that we're working on. But we have learnt a lot and now have a common shared view. You totally stuffed up mine. It's all okay. The lessons both organisations learnt across the 10 years of Living Water won't come as any surprise, I think, to most of you. So I'm not going to labour these, but within the partnership and the people doing this mahi on the ground, there were aha moments, and for our organisations as well as those people. Some of these involved admitting that farm by farm, that farm scale approach isn't going to be enough for nature. It's not going to be enough for our communities. Landscape DNA showed communities that the natural attributes of the landscape can affect water quality more than the farm management practices themselves. That was an aha moment for some of our farmers who've really beaten themselves up around their on-farm best practice. There is no one knowledge set, and we should never think there is. We can't achieve the future and all we want on our own, so we all need to keep working together and to grow that collective approach. Te ao Māori and Mātauranga Māori aren't to be feared. And more than that, they need to be embraced. We need to look to nature for the solutions. It's an absolute no-brainer. In many places, we will need to actually reimagine our productive landscapes. Just farming to the regulations won't help us build resilience and adapt to that ever-changing climate. And we need to put people at the heart of the problem solving. To do this, we need to embrace our social scientists, our change expert colleagues, and our community and sector leaders. They can help us navigate through the tough collaborative co-design processes. In simple terms, it's an A plus B, not an A or B. The future needs individual action and collective action. We need to work at the farm scale and at catchment landscape scale. Of course we need regulations, but we also need to build clear aspirations and bold goals to drive the restoration mahi and the regenerative approaches. And yes, technology will be incredibly helpful, but also nature has many of the solutions right now. Overall, there are some big shifts that need to happen, with many of them actually already underway in our rural communities. Some of these include reframing landowners to land stewards. This supports a mental shift, a positive and inspiring way forward. Moving the focus from doing less harm. We need to be being regenerative. Changing from just single issue focused discussions and fixes into integrated solutions with co-benefits for water, for climate, for biodiversity, for resilience, and for our people. Moving from retrofitting and squeezing nature into farms to reimagining our farms and productive landscapes through that nature and people lens. And listening and learning in order to open our minds to different perspectives and solutions so we can grow our shared understanding and then co-design the future together. And go. Over the past 10 years of DOC and Fonterra working together, we are actually slowly seeing a shift towards a lower input, more regenerative farming system. You might not think it, but it's happening out there and people aren't talking about it. This is happening for a whole bunch of reasons. There are market signals, there's finance signals, there's regulatory signals, but there's also signals from communities. It's also happening because of the growth in catchment collectives, in mana whenua and community leadership, and that farmer-to-farmer peer learning and support. So, is it possible for dairy and freshwater to thrive together? We think it will look very different, and we know it'll be a very uncomfortable transition, but we think it is possible. Kia ora, and thank you.
So, two related questions, I think. You can fire away at it.
Is this the end? If yes, why? Oh, what's next? We've actually still got about 6 months to go of the finishing projects and the monitoring and evaluation. But the last year, our steering committee has been thinking about, what have we learnt from this? Where do we want to go in the future? And DOC and Fonterra are actually part of some significant conversations happening for Aotearoa New Zealand around climate and nature. We're involved in the Aotearoa Circle. We're doing the Task Force for Nature-Related Disclosures bootcamp, and we're looking at what our responsibilities are around the Global Biodiversity Framework. So those conversations are happening not just with our two organisations, but actually with the ag sector and with energy, with Mercury and with Genesis and everybody. So that's been happening for the last year or so, and we've been feeding in all of the living water lessons learned into those processes. We've also agreed to stand up a resource to help us transition to what that future looks like, help us co-design, and probably more into a DOC and ag sector, view and partnership. So Living Water was an R&D trial. It was a pilot. We've learnt it. We learnt a lot, and we're closing down, that kind of formal work program. But the relationship continues, and we're now scoping what that climate and water and ag nexus looks like, and what we can do together at a New Zealand scale. Oh my Lord! Get in there, Millie.
I'll sit down. Can't read it from there.
Do you want to ask something?
Yeah, I guess I'll talk to the one about taking a financial hit, because it's got to be acknowledged that's clearly the case if there's going to be changes in farm systems that compromise profitability. There's a financial hit that comes with that, right? What we are seeing, I guess, is the emergence of sustainable finance and real opportunities for private landowners to earn from nature. And it's a very real, it's a reality that's coming down the line and will be in New Zealand within the next few years. And so from a government perspective, we're exploring that. Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures that the Aotearoa Circle are leading is looking to enable that mechanism into New Zealand, and they're talking about biodiversity credit systems and the like of that. So right now, is there money on the table to support these changes? Enough money to support the changes that's required? No, that's not sitting there. But we are absolutely trying to enable that into New Zealand, and there is big money overseas looking to invest in the right nature-based outcomes. And so I think if, for you guys engaging with farmers and thinking about your solutions, you have water there that you're in the thick of, you have climate there that you're in the thick of. If you're able to incorporate nature into those solutions, which a lot of you will be doing, that starts to set you up for a future where you can earn. Because we have no doubt that just like you can earn from climate solutions, you'll be able to earn from nature solutions in the future. So the answer to that.
I think there has been a shift with farmers as well about thinking about their profit. That's what we're seeing, actually reduced inputs happening at the moment. It's financial squeeze on, etc. And so there is a reframing going on about what the system looks like, and not just from a financial perspective, but also from a wellbeing perspective. About what that looks like on farm for you and for the farmers and their families, and we're seeing with some of our regenerative farmers that as soon as they make that choice to stop farming to the regs, and they actually jump and they start farming to nature and people, they put that in, they just completely free up mentally. And then they just go, the money's just it's really important, but it's a bit of a side gig, and you kind of get there when they start to really just reimagine their system. What have we got?
One last question. The bottom of it.
Oh, did the partnership incorporate commercial tree options on farms and catchments? What do you believe is potential for this under an enlarged program? We didn't. The Living Water Partnership where we've been playing is actually down in the lowlands, and it's in our, in that very sensitive environment where we've drained most of our wetlands and things like that. So most of the options that we were looking at, you think here in Canterbury, the only remaining biodiversity refuges is the drains on the farms. So we're haven't been looking at commercial kind of tree, options in that space. But there is quite a bit of work going on in different landscapes around what does commercial, viable kind of plantings look like at tree scale, and there's some others doing work in that. But I think that's one of the pieces that we learnt is that not many people are looking at this lowland drainage environment. You're going to see it on Thursday when you're on your field trips. And even like in the Three Waters discussions and things like that at councils, we're just like, they're not drains, they're streams. They are the refuge for biodiversity. It is, you know, they play such an amazing function in our landscape. But we have to recognise that people dug those out by hand, you know, 50 years ago, 70 years ago, to drain the land. But, you know, we really think that we need to be looking in this space. And there's a lot of, I suppose, lessons learnt around the Aotearoa catchment and Te Wahora where we did our pilot. So no big forestry or commercial tree programs, but I think that's going to come through climate, a lot of the climate work.